Hello, everybody. I want to talk today about the post-ACOTAR pipeline and do a general commentary on Romantasy and its place in publishing. What is this pipeline that I'm talking about? So what I mean by the post-ACOTAR pipeline is basically a lot of women have been picking up ACOTAR, read it, and they essentially get obsessed, and then they start devouring Romantasy novels. There's two main series that have really started this phenomenon, and it's ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas and Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And then they just go on and keep reading, and they keep reading. So they're reading series like From Blood and Ash, The Serpent and the Wings of Night. They go on to reading the other Sarah J. Maas series like Throne of Glass and Crescent City. A really popular one that came out recently is Quicksilver. These readers are picking up multiple copies, special editions of these books, and they have multiple variants. These readers are crediting ACOTAR or often Fourth Wing as being the book that got them back into reading. This has also bloomed a need in the publishing industry to publish more Romantasy books. So now you're seeing many different authors publish Romantasy. You're seeing romance authors now tip into the Romantasy with these fantastical elements. And you're just seeing a huge increase in Romantasy books on bookshelves. So really quickly, I don't want to go into too much detail, but what is Romantasy? Romantasy is a portmanteau for books that mix elements of romance and fantasy in one genre. And even within this genre, there are different types. There are books that people describe as fantasy first. So you have the main world building, the main plot point as the primary part of the story, and then you have the romance as a backdrop. And then there are romance first Romantasy novels where the world building and the plot are really just to further the romance. And the romance is the main attraction to this novel. But why are people reading Romantasy? And why did all of a sudden, a couple years ago, it just blew up like crazy? Why is Romantasy getting really popular? Why now? And if I'm going to be honest, I am one of these people. Okay, I got recommended ACOTAR by a friend, and then I just devoured the ACOTAR series. Then I devoured the Throne of Glass series. And honestly, after that, I slowed down because I read Fourth Wing and I did not like it as much. And then I read Quicksilver and I did not like it as much. And it kind of faded my desire to keep reading Romantasy. Before reading these fantasy novels, I had never really read high stakes fantasy like this. When I was young, my favorite book series was The Hunger Games. I loved reading Divergent. There's The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. And after that, I kind of just got into literary fiction. I had a big pause where I didn't read, but then I got into more literary fiction. So reading these high stakes, fantastical books was just so much fun. These books are really fun. They're action-packed. They're sultry. They often have a little bit of smut in them. One of the primary features is that there's often a female main character who is typically the superhero in these books. In an article by The Guardian, Carrie Maniscalco, author of Throne of the Fallen, writes that spicy books allow a safe space for readers to explore their own fantasies in an unapologetic way. She says it's really interesting to see readers online exploring that too and not being shy or ashamed. Romantasy novels typically also have a female main character as the superhero. So you have these strong, bold, she's courageous, and like we just said, she's usually empowered by her sexuality. You see a lot of discourse online where women are looking to Romantasy novels as a safe space from growing misogyny and crimes against women. Not only do you have a strong heroine who is the one fighting everybody, she's the queen, you have men who are hopelessly devoted to their queen. You have men who are getting on their knees, you have men who are dying for these women. These men are fighting in wars for these women, which I believe can create a huge sense of relief to some of the horror stories you might be seeing in the news. And finally, I think people also read Romantasy because our society is generally in not a good place. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, and people just aren't happy, unfortunately. And they are going to fun novels where there's high stakes and these people are falling in love as to get away from everything that we see today. As with anything that women do and like, romantasy also gets a lot of hate online. And I want to talk about it. Why is it getting a lot of hate? Firstly, I think a lot of traditional fantasy readers are dismissing the genre entirely because it's not real fantasy. They argue that it focuses too much on tropes like fated love, romance, enemies to lovers, instead of deep world building and political intrigue. I think that this argument is kind of old because I think we can also just have a new genre of books. If you're looking for an extremely heavy world building, politically charged novel, then just don't pick up a romantasy, okay? Like, just go to the next bookshelf. You can walk 3 steps. I also think that there is criticism that a lot of male hobbies and like male authored novels and male culture in general is often associated with violence. So it's funny to say that the female version, when it's not as associated with those things, then it's bad, or like it's just not fantastical enough. It just seems a little bit silly, and it seems like you're a little bit of hypocritical. It's a bit of a double standard to think that love stories are seen as trivial, but war stories are seen as more meaningful. The next reason I think people don't like romantasy is simply because it got really popular on Book Talk recently. And I think you see the same thing we see with like Colleen Hoover books, and It Ends With Us. People tend to just dismiss books that got popular in Book Talk. And I kind of agree with this one. I think that there are many good books that got popular in Book Talk, but you're also just going to get so many people that have different opinions than you are, that a lot of the popular books on Book Talk you're not going to like. I think a lot of people question Book Talk's taste on books, and I think that's fair. You should be questioning everything people say on the internet. But to simply question an entire genre because the genre got popular on the internet seems a bit silly, seems like you're taking it a bit too far. Anytime a niche fandom has gotten popular really quickly, which you saw during Twilight or you saw with Colleen Hoover books, there will be a lot of backlash following it. And I think this is also what happened with romantasy. It just got so popular so quickly with a lot of young women, so then people just immediately started backlashing it. People also don't like romantasy because I think there's a little bit of pop culture classism. I think when something becomes mainstream, a lot of critics don't like it. There's a subtle literary snobbery element when it comes to the hatred on romantasy. Romantasy blurs the line between commercial and literary fiction. It's accessible, it's emotional, and extremely entertaining. Book critics and critics who generally value higher art forms often sneer at accessible, mass appeal genres, forgetting that many readers come to reading and come to books through these mass appeal genres like romantasy and romance. And finally, I think the most important reason why people don't like romantasy is simply because it's primarily associated with women. So there is something in psychology called the Madonna whore complex. It is a psychological tendency to have an inability to see women as complex beings, instead dividing them into either pure virtuous figures or sexually available deprived figures, leading to a devaluing of women who fall outside these two categories. Freud theorized that men honor and respect their wives or girlfriends, but ultimately lose sexual attraction to them because they associate sexual desire with promiscuous women who they can debase, objectify, and treat with disrespect. Romantasy is primarily marketed towards women. Historically, anything that's feminine coded, like Twilight, Taylor Swift, boy band, makeup, romance typically gets labeled as cringe or basic and generally not worth your time. So I think when you get huge amounts of women gushing over how much they love something that is kind of a no-no because it has sex in it, they're gushing over fictional men, slow burn romances, or emotionally charged fantasy plots, critics will often trivialize it as shallow or unserious, even when the male-centered counterpart will be treated as art. The Romantasy series that I read are ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, Fourth Wing, and Quicksilver. And through some of these books, I saw how the Romantasy series can quickly become undesirable. I thought there was a lot of problems with Quicksilver. Primarily, I think the romance was thrown in really quickly. The main characters never had enough chemistry for their heated moments. It was always so sudden with no build-up. It was making the romance feel catered more towards teenagers. I thought the male main character just wasn't nice. He didn't really have that many redeeming qualities. I think he was kind of just a bad person. The book asks you to forgive him just because the main female character is falling in love with him, and I just don't think that that's a good message. I also found that the writing style consisted of a lot of run-on sentences. It used the F word a lot, which I didn't think was necessary. It had a lot of plot holes. The female main character was bombarded every couple chapters about the ongoings in that world, but she never actually went into that much fight herself. Half the story was told to the reader by another character. Next, I read Fourth Wing, and this one kind of gave me the ick, to be honest. The writing style felt very YA, but it had like intimate scenes in it, which seems wrong. The point here is that I have mixed reviews about some of the most popular Romantasy series, but I will be continuing to read this genre. And I, of course, believe that Romantasy has a place in literature. It has a place on our bookshelves. It can provide all those great things that we talked about. Escapism. It can help women get over some of their sexual fears. But I do think that as Romantasy readers, we need to be honest and open about criticism. We can criticize Romantasy books without criticizing the genre entirely. And we can say that there are some Romantasy books that are just simply not that good. And we need to be open to more criticism to books specifically. But I do think we can discredit criticism that criticizes the entire genre as a whole. I think these criticisms are just simply sexist. And these people who are criticizing genres as a whole, even when they're so popular, need to take a step back and realize that having more money in publishing, having more money in these popular book types will lead to more money for every type of author. That's how you get funding to publish the small indie authors. That's how you get money to publish less commercially popular book genres. So for all you haters out there, stop. We don't need it anymore. Go spend your energy on something else. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel.